Man, I know that feeling all too well, that feeling that you're going under. And I know you know it as well, because when I talk to you and ask how you're doing, you'll say, you know what, I'm just feeling overwhelmed right now. I'm just exhausted. I don't know that I'm going to be able to keep going the way I'm going. And there's just that sense of just going under, which is why we're in this series that we've entitled Going Under. And as we jump into this series, you just need to know I'm teaching myself as much as I'm kind of talking to you, where this is an area that I've struggled with and still struggle with and hoping to learn and move forward in this. And so let me just kind of illustrate the whole idea of going under this way. Let's say that as we talk about our lives, all of us realize there's a way that we can live our lives that we would describe as being just a healthy way to live our lives, where our schedules are under control and our lives feel like they're in order, and we would just describe ourselves as being real healthy in the way that we're going about life. And some of us are there, and if you're there, then that's a fantastic place to be. Some of us go, I remember times for that, and I look forward to times of that, but really, if you were to describe your life, you'd say it's really involving a whole lot more pain. And it's when you find yourself in pain, when your schedule is just out of control, when the decisions that you've made have put you in a position where you just feel like you're going under, then you'd say, really, I'm closer to pain than I am to health in my life. But what's interesting is there's kind of a division between health and pain, and that's the area of margin. And the place, it's almost a warning track to say, in this vicinity, when you start bumping up in here from the healthy place to margin, then all of a sudden you're at the warning track, and what you're hearing, those kind of feelings inside of you, is be careful, because you're headed towards pain, and where it's going to take you is not going to be good. So let's say that you find yourself as a student, and you figured out that as a student, you've got 7 hours a day that you're expected to be in class, and you've kind of figured that piece out, where you go, okay, I get it. 7 hours a day, I've got to be in class, and if I want to go to a good college, then I've got to study extra hard, work on my grades, and so you're doing your 7 hours a day in class, but what you also find out is apparently 7 hours a day in class isn't good enough, because there's another 2 hours of homework on top of those 7 hours, and you go, so far I'm still in the healthy range. I can manage 7 hours a day. I may not like the 2 hours of homework, but I'm managing it. I'm doing okay. And just with that, you're finding yourself getting by. But you're not just doing that, because you also enjoy sports, and so you're playing football right now, and what that means is you've got practice every day that begins to cut into your margin, and you go, you know what, I'm doing okay, but there's not a whole lot of extra space there. And so by the time you get home, shower, eat dinner, and you're ready to jump into your homework, it's 9 o'clock in the evening, and that's manageable, but your parents are saying, you know what, that's all great that you're keeping up with your studies, great that you're playing sports and involved that way. You still got chores you got to do. And you're not done yet. You've got things around the house that you said you'd do, and we talked about this before, and all of a sudden you've gone from the margin to the pain level, and you're starting to feel some tension of thinking, I'm not sure I can keep up with that. And then on top of that, you find yourself going, you know what, I've got friends that I'm not keeping up with. I've got things that I want to kind of work towards. Maybe it's a driver's license, maybe it's a musical you're auditioning for, and all of a sudden it's just a few more small things, and it feels like it's all going to come tumbling down. You say, I'm not sure that I can keep this up. I feel like I'm going under. Or let's turn the tables. You're the parents of these teenagers. And as a parent, you go, you know what? I kind of feel like I live my life right here. That's where I live my life all of the time, because I've got the job, the family, the bills, the kids, and you just go, I feel like I'm under pressure all of the time. But at some point, those teenagers are going to grow up and they're going to move out of the house. And you go, you know what? When we hit that point, that's when we're going to find ourselves living the healthy life again. That's going to be the good life. Those are going to be the golden years when it's just he and I, she and I, in the house together. And so you're excited about someday hitting this healthy place, and you finally come to the point where the kids are grown and they're out of the house, and all of a sudden you realize, you know what are meant to be the golden years, you're still struggling. And the reason you're struggling is it's been 25 years since it's just been the two of you, and now there's the stress of, we've got to learn to like each other again, just the two of us. What do we talk about now? How do we relate to one another? Because it's been so long since it's just been the two of us, and so the stress level goes up. Added to that, you thought in the golden years you were going to be taking lots of trips. You thought vacations, things that we've been looking forward to in life, and it was going to be great, and yet you start planning those trips, and then you realize they cost money, and you don't have money because you've got mortgage payments and car payments and school payments, and And all of a sudden the level goes up and you've gone back from health to margin to pain because you've realized even though the kids are out of the house, you're still a parent. And the issues change, but the parenting doesn't. And you say, I find myself living in pain and feeling like I'm going under. Now, those may not be the scenarios that you've experienced in life. And I could bring each and every one of you up here and we could go through and we could build your life and you would still pretty much end up with the same place. Where we say, I just feel like I'm going under. I feel like I'm not able to manage what I'm experiencing in my life right now. And here's the good news. God says you don't have to live this way. God says you and I don't have to live this way. God has a plan. God has direction for us in life and how not to live that way. He has a lot to say about living life well. Living life well being in the healthy range. Living life well where we're not feeling like we're all stressed out. And so last week we talked about the fact that God has actually provided us with an incredible gift. And this incredible gift is to say you don't have to live life this way. You can actually live it in the healthy range. And this incredible gift that he actually gives us brings breathing room into our schedules. And this is the way God talks about that gift. He calls it the Sabbath, and the Sabbath is just meaning to cease or desist, to stop doing whatever it is that you've been doing. Just cease, stop altogether. And he says, stop doing what you're doing for one entire day a week. That's the idea of a Sabbath. Whatever you're doing the other 6 days of the week, on the seventh, you stop doing what you've been doing. And so if you're a farmer and you've been out in your fields farming for 6 days, on the seventh, you stop. You don't go out in the fields. If you're a truck driver and you've been driving truck for 6 days, on the seventh day, you do not drive your truck. If you're attending to people's medical needs 6 days a week, on the seventh, you stop. You don't do that anymore. Whatever you've been doing for the other 6 days, on the seventh, one day a week, you stop and you don't do what you've been doing. If you watch TV a lot during those 6 days, on the seventh, you stop, you take a break, you cease, desist. If you play a lot of video games on the 6 days, you stop. On the seventh, you cease, you desist. If you play a lot of golf on the other 6 days, you do not play golf. On the seventh, you stop. If you're a pastor those other 6 days, you do not pastor on the seventh day. And whatever it is, if you're a student 6 days a week, on the seventh, he says, you stop, you cease, you desist, you take a break from what you would normally do during those other 6 days. One day a week, you stop. And as you hear God say that, you go, that's impossible. I could not do that with my schedule, with the things that I have in my life. Maybe it worked whenever God first said to do that, but he wasn't talking about today. He wasn't talking about my schedule. I'm a student. I've got things I've got to study for, prepare for. I've got projects at work that I've got to prepare for. And so we come up with all these reasons as to why this isn't going to work, as though somehow God's plans work for everybody else but you. And you're the only one. How amazing is that? That God comes up with these plans and you're the only one that it's not going to work for. And God says, look, you just need to understand. He says, if you want to not live life this way, then this is my plan for you. And I told you I'm very much as much a student in this whole thing as I am kind of teaching this from experience. And so trying to figure this thing out. And the thing that I've really come to discover, even just in the last several weeks, is when God talks about the Sabbath, in my mind before, whenever he would talk about ceasing, desisting, so that we could have a day off during the week, I always thought, well, if I manage my time well during the week, those other 6 days, then I would be able to have the benefits of the Sabbath. But it never quite worked out that way. And then I began to realize several weeks ago, when God tells us to take a Sabbath break, and it doesn't matter the day of the week, he gives us lots of flexibility, but when he says, I want you to take that Sabbath break, what he's really saying is, I want you to take that break as a way to demonstrate that you trust me. Do you trust me enough to actually take one day a week off from what you've been doing the other 6 days? And so this has been revolutionary for me, I think a game changer, because again, it's not a matter of, do I manage my time well? I think I'm pretty good at that, but it's really a matter of, do I trust God enough to take care of me? And that's really the challenge for each and every one of us. Because we kind of look at it and we say, you know what, God, I want to trust you, but what if all the projects aren't done? What if all the fields haven't been crops brought in from the fields? What if? What if I'm not quite as prepared as I want to be for the next day or the next week? And God says, hey, trust me on this one. And so I'll just tell you, I'm 2 weeks into these Sabbath breaks, so it's not like I've got lots of history with this, but it's been interesting. It's been tough, but it's been exciting as well. Tough from the standpoint that it takes discipline, because all the things that I've been doing the other 6 days, I find myself wanting to do on that seventh day. I want to grab my phone. I want to go to the computer. I want to do the same things that I've been doing. And so to discipline myself and say, no, I'm not going to do that has been challenging. And yet I will say I've had more breathing room than I'm experienced in a good while. And here's the thing. Whether you choose to demonstrate the fact that you're trusting in God by observing a Sabbath break in your life or not, God says what it really comes down to is just the issue of discipline. And are you willing to trust Him? Are we willing to trust Him and step back and say, God, I'm going to trust you with this when my life has been on the verge of going under, and so I'm going to trust you in what you say, how you say to do life, and do it well. So today I want to actually look at another piece of wisdom that God gives us. Let me ask you to grab a Bible, Proverbs chapter 4, page 483 in the Bibles there at your seats. Proverbs chapter 4. And I want to read some words of advice that are given actually from a father to his sons, from a father to his children. And he's just saying, look, here's some wisdom on how to live your life. Now, as we begin reading in Proverbs, let me just remind you, Proverbs are not meant to be promises. They're not guarantees. Proverbs are meant to say, this is the way life generally works. If you do this, then this is how life will generally work. Observations about what's generally true in life, normal course of events. There's always exceptions to general rules, but God is saying through Proverbs, this is the way it typically works and works well. Proverbs chapter 4, let me begin reading verse 10 as this father is giving advice to his children. It says, my child, listen to me and do as I say, and you will have a long, good life. I will teach you wisdom's ways and lead you in straight paths. When you walk, you won't be held back. When you run, you won't stumble. Take hold of my instructions. Don't let them go. Guard them, for they are the key to life. He says, take hold of my instructions, guard them, hold on to them. Do not let them go. Grip them tightly, because this is the key to life. This is the key to your life working well, so you don't spend your life living it in pain, in misery, feeling you're going under. This is the key to doing life and doing it well, where life is going well for you. And so today I want to look at some specifics, one specific instruction actually, that God gives us, that this father gives to his children in the book of Proverbs, that just kind of says, hey, this is how to do life and how to do it well. And it's this, Proverbs 13:18 says, poverty and shame come to a person who ignores discipline. Poverty and shame comes to the person who ignores discipline. In other words, you can choose to either take discipline seriously or you can choose to blow it off. It's your choice, but either way, if you choose to blow it off, you will do so at your own peril. Your life will not go well. You will spend your life living it in pain. And God is saying that discipline is this indispensable tool that will help you make your life work well. If you choose to embrace discipline, then he says your life will generally go well. And so today I want to break down this thing called discipline and just understand it and then apply it to our lives so that our lives will work better. And there's actually two pieces to the whole thing of discipline, and as it pertains at least to our lives and how we manage our lives. And the first piece is really, it's just called delayed gratification. And it's figuring out how to become an expert at the practice of delayed gratification. And delayed gratification is just go through the pain first so you can experience the pleasure later. Go through the hard pieces first so you can experience the fun, more pleasurable pieces later. And it's delayed gratification. And the writer of Proverbs says, hey, talking to his kids, if you want life to go well, begin to experience and practice delayed gratification. Now, let me illustrate delayed gratification this way. I love eating cake, and my favorite kind of cake is a white cake with chocolate icing, a layered cake, and what my favorite cake is actually, it's right out of a box. Betty Crocker, Duncan Hines, either one. I'm thrilled with that. And when Ruth and I were first married, she spent a day in the kitchen baking a white cake with chocolate icing and presented it to me when I got home that evening. And it was okay, but it wasn't Betty Crocker or Duncan Hines. And I said, Ruth, you don't have to spend the day in the kitchen doing this. Just mix it right out of the box. I will be thrilled to death. And now, if you have the good fortune of having a cake mixed right out of the box, white cake, chocolate icing, there's a right way and a wrong way to actually experience eating that piece of cake. And it starts with a sizable slice of cake. And not long after Ruth and I were married, we spent the day, the evening, eating with my family, and so we had dinner. Ruth had made dessert for everybody that night, and so she went into the kitchen. She was going to actually bring us the dessert and cut it up for us and bring it to us, and it was actually cake that she had made that day, and I think it was right out of the box, and so we were all excited about the cake that we were going to have. She brings it back into the dining room, and all of our jaws just dropped, because she didn't bring back sizable pieces. She brought back slivers. And my family is rather large, not numbers-wise, but just rather large, and we like our cake large. And so from that day forward, and over the last 50 years, whenever we talk about dessert in my family, then there's an Ashcraft size of dessert, which is a big right size of cake, and then there's the Tipton size, which is Ruth's maiden name, which is just a sliver of cake. And so we'll still say, what do you want, an Ashcraft size or a Tipton size? And everybody knows exactly what that means. Now, the right way to eat that big Ashcraft size of cake is you lay that piece of cake on its side, and then you very meticulously begin eating the cake out from around the icing. And what's left is just the 2 layers of icing there. And what you're doing, it's delayed gratification. You're eating the cake first so you can enjoy the pleasure of the chocolate icing, and you can savor every single bite. That's not painful eating the cake, but it is real exciting eating the icing. And it's pain first, so you can experience the pleasure later. And as we talk about discipline, bottom line, delayed gratification, and it works in every area of life. In school, it's attacking the homework assignments right when you first get home, so then you can spend the rest of the evening on pleasure. It's investing in working hard at an entry-level position when you first get out of college so that you can begin to grow, and later as you grow in that organization, then you can actually enjoy an extended season of pleasure. It's setting up a workable budget as soon as you have money to work with, and it doesn't matter it's not waiting for winning the lottery. It's as soon as you start earning a paycheck, you say, you know what, I'm going to take 10% and I'm going to give that to God. I'm going to take another 10%. I'm going to set that aside for savings. And you begin to invest and enroll in the profit-sharing fund of your company, and you live within your means for 35 years. You're experiencing the pain first so that in the retirement years, the later years of your life, you can experience the pleasure that goes with that. And it's just delayed gratification. It's a beautiful thing, and it works across all areas. And you could pick the area of your life. It could be relationships, it could be finances, it's work. It even applies to our relationship with God. We say, I'm going to put in some work here so I can experience the pleasure later. Because bottom line, God says through this thing of delayed gratification, we can experience life at the healthy level. We don't have to experience it at the level of pain. Now, there's another component to discipline, and I'm going to illustrate it to you in a minute, but let me just tell you what it is. And that's bottom line, mastering the art of advanced decision making. Making your decisions in advance as to what you're going to do before you find yourself in a heated situation. You decide. In the safety and a protected environment, in broad daylight, you make the decision and say, you know what, in this protected environment, this is the decision I'm going to make if I'm ever faced with these circumstances. And so you find yourself saying, look, here's the decision I'm going to make when you're in a safe environment. Now, Proverbs actually talks a lot about advanced decision making. It does it primarily in a real X-rated, R-rated section of Proverbs. I guess it's more R-rated than X-rated, but it's a racy section of the book of Proverbs concerning the foolishness, the folly, the consequences of sexual indiscretions. And the writer of Proverbs takes this interesting approach to teach us about advanced decision making. And he says, I want to teach you how to do that by helping you stay clear of sexual sin. And he says, take the advanced decision-making approach. So let me ask you to turn over Proverbs chapter 7. I believe it's page 485 in the Bibles there at your seats. Proverbs chapter 7. And what the writer of Proverbs is going to say is, in the safety of your environment, in a protected, broad daylight situation, make the decision in advance how you're going to handle the situation. Now, the example that he's going to use for us is sexual indiscretion, sexual integrity. Maybe for you, that's not the issue. Maybe for you, it's the food that you eat. Maybe for you, it's the way that you shop. Maybe for you, it's the way you manage your time. You have your own issue that you struggle with that causes you to live a lot of your life in pain, but he's going to give us the illustration, the example of sexual indiscretion. And so let me begin reading Proverbs chapter 7. I'll start reading in verse 6. Remember, this is a dad talking to, in this case, his sons. He says, "While I was at the window of my house, looking through the curtain, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path by her house. It was twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell." Now, let me just stop there and don't keep reading. It gets more dicey as we go, but we'll read it. You'll get there. So his dad is saying, look, here is a situation that I saw where this young man walking down the street, he did not decide in advance how he was going to handle this situation. Or maybe he did. Maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe in advance he decided, I'm going to go to her street. I know she's there. Not only am I going to go to the street, I'm going to cross the street so I'm closest to her house, hoping to run into her. Maybe it was an advanced decision that he made. But the father is going to say, wait a minute, before you make that kind of decision, I want you to think through this. And he said, I want you to think through, first of all, what are the benefits of making this decision? And for the young guy that's thinking, I'm going to cross the street and I'm actually going to go right in front of her house, he's thinking of a certain kind of benefits, but the dad is going to say, but you know what? There's actually a long-term consequence to all of this. And so think through the benefits of making a wise decision. That's a foolish decision. To go down her street, to go down and cross the street in front of her house, foolish decision. There are benefits if you don't make that decision. If you decide you're going to go with sexual integrity. And so the benefits, the clear conscience you have before your wife, before your husband, your spouse. No worries about being exposed. And anybody saying, oh, do you know what that person did? No worries about just blowing your family apart. No worries about sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancies. He says there's all kinds of benefits to not doing that. And so he says, in broad daylight, make the decision. Do not go down that road. But this guy did not make that kind of decision. He's headed down the road. We continue. Verse 9, it was twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell. The woman approached him, seductively dressed and sly of heart. She was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay home. She is often in the streets and markets, soliciting at every corner. She threw her arms around him and kissed him, and with a brazen look she said, I've made my peace offerings and fulfilled my vows. You are the one that I was looking for. I came out to find you, and here you are. Think of that. What are the odds? Here you are. And the dad is saying, okay, wait a minute, let's step back. Now, we're going to keep reading, but stop and follow me for a second. He says, okay, had you decided in advance what you were going to do? Had you thought first through the benefits, and had you thought through the cost? Do you think about what this is actually going to cost you if you choose to keep going down the path that you're going down? And so think through the cost. Think through the destructive things that go along with sexual sin. Think through the damage that it could cause to a spouse or a future spouse. Think through the damage that it might be to the relationships with your kids that you've been trying to cultivate. Think through what it'd be like to stand before a holy God and say, God, this is kind of the path I chose to take. And he says, just think through the cost involved. And do that, he says, in broad daylight. Come up with this cost-benefit analysis. Do it in broad daylight. Don't wait until you're walking down the street at twilight. Don't wait until she's standing there talking to you. Don't wait until the aroma is there. And again, this may not be the issue for you. You may have other issues. He's just saying whatever your issue is, decide in advance. And so the story goes on. She says, verse 16, my bed is spread with beautiful blankets with colored sheets of Egyptian linen. I've perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink our fill of love until morning. Let's each enjoy each other's caresses. For my husband is not home. He's away on a long trip. He's taken a wallet full of money with him, and he won't return until later this month. And she's saying, this is perfect. This is going to be amazing. And the dad is watching this play out, and he's telling his sons, look. Don't wait until you're in that environment. Think through the benefits, think through the cost, come up with this cost-benefit analysis, think it through. Verse 21, so she seduced him with her pretty speech and enticed him with her flattery. He followed her at once. And here's the dad saying, okay, here's the result. Like an ox going to the slaughter. He was like a stag caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce his heart. He was like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing it would cost him his life. And the dad is talking to his sons. He says, listen to me, my sons, and pay attention to my words. Don't let your hearts stray away toward her. Don't wander down her wayward path, for she has been the ruin of many, many men have been her victims. Her house is the road to the grave. Her bedroom is the den to death. And he's just saying, oh, my goodness. Think through this in advance. in the middle of the day, broad daylight, safe environment, before the passions, before everything heats up, make a decision in advance of what you will do in that situation. And then if I can add one more piece to all of this, and that's whatever the decision you make, seal it. Seal your decision before God. And say, God, here's my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And I know it's going to be hard. I know there's going to be temptations. I know there are going to be things that are going to try to pull me off course. But God, I'm just telling you, I'm sealing this before you, asking you to help me in this process. Because, God, I don't want to live my life up here. I want to experience healthy, not just all the pain and even living in the margin. I want to experience healthy. So, God, I'm asking you to help me. And if we really want to experience breathing room, then we've got to invite God into the process. And He's willing to lead us and He's willing to guide us along the way, which means if we invite God into the process, we've got to make the decision that we're going to listen first to the nudges of God. We're going to listen first to the nudges of God in our life as He's leading us, as He's guiding us, as we have this sense of, oh, what should I do? I listen first to the nudges of God because He's going to direct us. If you're a follower of Jesus, if you've trusted Jesus as your Savior, you're a son, you're a daughter of God, which means His Spirit is living inside of you, and His Spirit living inside of you means He's with you every step of the way, every moment of the day. And He's real willing and able to guide us and direct us and say, oh, no, don't go that way. Go this way. This is a much better way. This way will result in healthy living. That way will result in pain. And so He nudges us and guides us, and you begin to listen for His nudging, His guiding in your life. And it's up to us to listen for those nudges because He doesn't force His way on us. He nudges us. But can I give you a caution? Here's what happens to us as we're following Jesus in our lives. So often what happens is we begin to ignore His nudges. We don't listen first to His nudges. And we ignore the direction that He's giving us. And we had a sense that I should have gone that way, but you know what? I'm going to go this way. I'm going to cross the street. I'm going to go in front of her house. And we ignore His nudges. And what happens is the more we ignore His nudging in our life, then before long we become immune to it. We don't even notice it anymore. And so we start saying things like, I don't think God's even a part of my life anymore. I don't think God even cares. Have you ever said that before? I don't think God even cares what's going on in my life. I don't think He's even present in my life. And odds are if you've used those words or anything like it, you've been ignoring the nudges of God, and He's been saying, here's where I want you to go. You've been ignoring Him, and you become immune to Him. You don't even know He's there anymore. And you may claim to be a follower of Jesus. And you're saying, Jesus, I want you to take care of my eternity because I can't take care of that. But when it comes to just everyday life, you're saying, hey, I'm not following you, Jesus. I'm going to do it my way. I find it fascinating that for me and for so many of us, when it comes to our schedules, we say, God, you can take care of my eternity. When it comes to my schedule and the way I plan my schedule, I'll take care of that. Thanks, God. I've got this one. And yet, I have got this one has led me here. And God says it doesn't have to be that way. He says, I care about your days, I care about your hours, I care about your minutes, just as much as I care about your eternity. He says, I will nudge you, I will guide you. But so many of us, we've been pushing back on Him for so long, we don't even think He's there in our lives anymore. We say, God, where are you? Look at me, God. Do you not see what I'm experiencing? Do you not hear and feel the pain that I'm going through? Do you not know what's going on in my life? And God is going, I know exactly what's going on in your life. And I was nudging you to go that way, and you chose to go this way, and here's where you ended up. And you don't even notice my nudging anymore in your life. God cares deeply about us, and some of us have been holding back and doing life God's way every day and hour and minute. And look where it's got us. And so what do we have to lose? I mean, why not say I'm going to listen to the nudges of God? And my recommendation for all of us would be sometime very soon to pull out a sheet of paper and say, what are the critical choices that I need to make now in broad daylight? What are the things that I need to do right now in broad daylight so that I can experience healthy life, not painful life? And what are the choices that we need to make? And choices like honoring God in everything, choices like sexual purity, choices like being a true friend to some people, choices like spending my time wisely. Just you write the choices down and you say, right now in broad daylight, I'm making the decision. You seal those choices before God and you say, God, I'm asking you to kind of help me because I know I'm going to struggle with this. I'm asking you to help me, to guide me. And what Proverbs tells us is that people who practice discipline usually end up with lives in the healthy range. That's what it says. And Proverbs says people who don't practice discipline, you're going to live up here. And we live right now in a culture where we think we're stressed out more than we've ever been before. And it could be that we're making decisions that cause us to be up here. And God says, it doesn't have to be that way. I'm giving you direction. If we can master this thing called discipline under the direction, the power of God, there's no telling where our lives could go. There's no telling what we could accomplish in our lives, who we can become, but it's our choice. And see, what we've got to realize the choice really is, do I trust God? I know I trust Him with my eternity. Do I trust Him with my days? Do I trust Him with my hours, my minutes? Do I trust God above everything else? And I think so often we're just going through the motions. We show up and we say, yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus. We show up and we sing the songs and say, I'm a follower of Jesus. But when it comes right down to it, we're not following Him. And we end up here and we act surprised. We act disappointed in God when it's not God we ought to be disappointed in. It's probably ourselves. So I'll tell you how I want us to end today. I want us to end by just giving ourselves some time, some space, some room right now in an environment that's safe, in an environment that is protected, to actually go ahead and begin to make some decisions right now. Advanced decisions to say, God, this is how I want to handle these situations. If I ever find myself in this scenario, this is how I'm going to handle this situation. And you know what the areas are of your life that you need to just step back and say, God, this is an area I need to work on here because I'm messing up and it's affecting me royally. And so I want to just give us some space and some time and allow us to talk to God. And maybe you've not ever talked to God before, and it's as simple as it's just talking to God in your heart, in your head. You say, God, this is what I'm experiencing right now. This is what I'm feeling. Or maybe you've talked to God before. Maybe you're one of His sons and daughters. It's just been a real long time since you've actually talked to Him honestly. And there was a time that you talked to Him a lot, but maybe it's been a long, long time. And yeah, you talk to Him about the pain that you're in. You tell Him how miserable you are, but then you blow Him off when He actually comes back and responds and nudges you with some direction to get you out of that. And so maybe what you need to talk to God about is, God, I've been blowing you off. I've been doing this my own way. I've been managing my own schedule. And so I want to give us some time just to talk to God. And maybe as you're talking to God, maybe what you're saying is, God, I just need to go back to where things started. Because what happens is, as we begin to follow Jesus, then we become immune to what He's nudging us to do. And when we first trusted Jesus, we would do anything. Everything we knew about Jesus, we'd just do. If He said to do it, we did it. But then after a while, we kind of stop. And so maybe it's a matter of talking to God and saying, God, I want you to bring me back to the beginning, where I will trust you not only with my eternity, but with my days, my hours, and my minutes. And so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to pray, and then the bands are going to come out, and they're going to sing over us. And as they sing, I would just challenge you to listen to the words of the song. And as you listen to those words, if those words speak to you, and if those words would be words that you would want to say to God, then use those words. Say them back to God. Say, God, this is exactly how I'm feeling. I'm sorry. I've been doing life my way. Or God, take me back to the beginning. I just want to go back to where I was when I started following you. God, I've been experiencing this. I want to experience health in my life. And so you talk to God and make this song your prayer to God. It's not to anybody else. This is to God. And today, if you want breathing room, then God says, hey, trust me. We can do this. I can get it for you. Trust me. If you say you feel like you're going under, you don't want to go under anymore, then make the decision now. Broad daylight, safe, protected environment to say, God, I'm going to trust you here. I'm going to do what you asked me to do. So I'm going to pray. As the band sing, you talk to God and choose to trust Him today. Heavenly Father, that's fun to talk about eternity and what you do and what you've done for us for eternity, but you also talk about today. And while you're worried about eternity for us and concerned about that, and you've come up with a plan, you also have a plan for today. Today, in this hour, in this moment. And so, God, may we come to the point of not just trusting you for eternity, but may we come to the point of trusting you for every minute of our lives. May we not come with our schedule and say, God, this is what we want you to bless, but instead may we come and say, okay, God, you nudge me. Show me. Here's the decision I'm making. Now I'm asking you to nudge me and direct me. And God, as you nudge us, may we respond to your nudges. As you direct us, may we not become immune to your direction. May we not become just so used to shutting you down that we don't even notice you in our lives anymore. Possibly, God, for a lot of us, it's just coming back to the beginning and saying, God, bring us back to that point when we first trusted Jesus, when we were willing to do whatever you asked us to do. So God, in this moment, in this protected environment, we come to you and say, you know what, Jesus, you're the one that we want. You're the one that we want to follow, and you're enough. It's not anybody else, anything else, but we're going to trust you for each day of our lives. And I pray in Jesus' name, amen.